Hey folks, welcome to the stream. It's a Sunday afternoon here, and we're going to do some development as usual. So, if you want to see me work on something in particular, let me know in the chat and we'll see what we can do. Or if you're learning Unreal Engine and you want to know how to do something, I shall see if I can find an example of it in the current project and we can take a look at that for you. So, with that in mind, we are going to muck about with our mic because it just won't sit in the right place at the moment for some reason. And I sound a bit rough today, I've got to say. And last night after the stream, I was in contact with my modeler slash animator slash friend, and we got a little bit of stuff done. So, we have basically updated the animation blueprint for the player, and you will now see that we have we should have seen that we had hands, but apparently it ain't working. Okay. So, I must have done... We had a lot of issues with blend spaces last night, with one particular blend space just doing weird, mad stuff, bobbing up and down and stuff like that. And we're going to move that to there. And now as you can see, we've got our arms running. Hi Kiwi Mastermind. Now what I need to do now is we need to do... We're using third person run, okay? And now what we need to do is we need to add notifies to this track so that we get the footstep sounds, okay? How are you today, Kiwi? So, what we're going to do is right. So, we're going to basically add a step. Add a step. Save that. Bring that down. Right, and then I'm going to turn the sound on for you guys so that you can hear this. Okay, get ready. So you can hear the difference between the carpet and the wood. That's the wood, that's the carpet, that's the wood, that's the carpet. Okay. And that is all working. So we can have a look at that if you like to see. I'm going to turn that back off again. So you can see here that this is working off the idle run blend space, and it's working off state machine. Now the one last thing that we need to check that we were looking at is when we break the wood, okay? And we may need to create a new level for this. With a lot of lighting, put it that way. Okay, we'll just wait on this loading up, so I shall have a drink of my coffee. How are you guys today, anyway? Right, and I think what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to make a level. Or, in fact, what we could do is we could go into our first person controller. Right. And we could, this is our movement graph. Oh, yeah. Since we're now not doing a head bob, I had to take out the head bob camera shake, since the animation is actually taking care of the head bob. Okay, so if I was doing both, then I was getting like a double sort of whammy, a double head bob being done, which was completely throwing things off, right? So this got changed last night to bypass the head bob thing. Right. So our next thing is this a G or a... That's a 6. Okay, we can use this. Right, so what we'll do is we'll get our animation instance, right, and we'll say break. Okay, and we'll set it to true, right, and then we should be able to do this now in the gateway so that we can actually see what that looks like. Right, and it doesn't look quite right. It's nearly right, but not quite. Right, let's run up these stairs, get right next to a light so we can see exactly what's going on here. And if we hit 6, right, so it's not brilliant. I mean, within the confines of the game, it actually looks okay. I'll show you what I mean. And for some reason we're getting absolutely zero wooden. I wonder if we can play that faster. Right, see this break wood thing? Right, see if we play that. I wonder if we play that at 2, right? Right, so if I hit 6, that might work, right? Right, so this seems to be working fine, except for the fact okay. Right, so This is a large level at the end of the day, isn't it? This is pretty big. Ah, you got me. Okay. Right, so that's all looking good. And I'm going to go with the fact that if we play that at a higher speed, it's kind of obscured, which kind of works. Getting a drink of my coffee. So, did anybody watch the World Cup opener? And what were your thoughts on it? My personal thoughts on it was Qatar were very poor. Ecuador just did enough, basically. I think Ecuador probably last 16 at best, quarters at best. But yeah, they looked to have some decent players. Qatar looked like they had nobody. Anyway, that was my thoughts on the World Cup opener. So let's go back to our to-do list and see what else we can have a look at. I was asking if anybody watched the World Cup opener between Qatar and Ecuador and what their thoughts on it were if they did. Right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try something. Football. Like real football. We're going to resize this image. And we're not going to maintain that. And we're going to say 400 by 400. Right, these are going to be the writing on the wall. Okay? So, in the first instance, we're going to delete that. Right? Then we're going to do that. Then we're going to add a layer. We're going to click on that. We're going to do that. We're then going to pick a font which kind of looks like handwriting-ish. Does anybody know any good fonts that looks kind of like handwriting without being too stylized? It's not going to be Tahoma, that's going to be for sure. I guess we could try that. We'll go for a 48. Let's try it. They are hunting. Right, we could pump this. Let's try it at 72. And that's too big. Not by much though. Right, so that kind of works. Right, so save as. We're going to save it as a PNG. We're going to say hunting. Okay, we're going to cancel that for now, because I don't think I saved it in the right place. We want to go to imports, and we want to go to here. PNG. And we can do hunting. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to undo that. We're going to undo that. And we're going to say in fact, what we'll do is me out. Okay, and we shall center that up. Okay, and we'll save as PNG. Say let me out. Save that. Then we can undo. And we can save. And we can just muck about with these, not having them in one. Not having them in one alignment, just moving things about. This is just going to give us some ideas on what we need to do here, right? Right, so that gives us 3, right? Plus the one we already had. Then we can start recording the sound for these. We'll close that down for now. And then in our blueprints, right, where did I put these? Are they in the HUD? I don't think so. If we open up our maps and layout parts, then go to our layout straight, we shall see what this is called, and it's called the decal, and it's this thing here, right? Now this picks them out of a data table, I believe, right? So there's the help thing, right? Now you'll see here it gets DT wall assets. Okay, now we can also look at this, and then we can find out, yeah, it's in here. Okay, so what we can do now is we can go to here, imports, messages, then select this one, hunting, this one, okay. And then we can basically create the material. That's the let me out material. Then we can create the material there and material there. Now we probably want to delete this. Right? But what we can now do is add. Hey McCats VR, how are you? And we can now drag these into here. And that gives us our new messages on the wall. Okay, now we do need to do the sound for these. We can do this help me queue, and we can just basically drag it into all of them for now. Yeah, I'm good. I'm sounding a bit rough actually, I think. Or a bit hoarse, but I don't feel any different. It's a bit cold here. In relative terms, like it's not 2 degrees cooler than the surface of the sun. But it is a bit chilly. It's about, I would say about 60 degrees or something. And how are you today? Right, now, because I've not got a standard way of doing this yet, this is probably going to look a bit weird. Right, but we can have a look to see how it's beginning to take shape, right? Is the point. It's 42 here. Well, I can read that in 2 ways. I can either think you're in Qatar and watching the World Cup and it's really hot, or it's pretty cold. And as per usual, the gods of random numbers decided that it's not going to give me any. Oh, are you in Canada, is that right? Right, as you can see, as you can see, we've made a bit of a balls of it. Well, not really made a balls of it, but we've goofed a little bit in the fact that I didn't set these materials up very well. Now, you know what I should have done? I'm a goofy goofballer. Right, for those who don't, hands up, all those who want to do some material instances. Yep, I saw all your hands up. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a material, right? And it's going to be, let's say, mat message. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to set the blend mode to translucent. Then we're going to add a vector 3, a vector parameter. Oh, it's actually not going to be a vector parameter. We could make a vector parameter, but we're not going to because that's just me, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to make it red, but we're going to make it a sort of dirty red, kinda, right? So we're going to go with that. But what we're going to do here is we're going to say texture parameter. Texture sample parameter. Right? And convert to parameter. And this is going to be our texture. Now, I'll show you in a minute the reason we're doing this. Was that a note to doing materials? Because if it was, I'm disappointed in you. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to multiply this and the RGB, and then this is going to go into the base color. Right, hang on a second here. It's been a doofus. Yeah, it is a texture sample, right? Yeah, that's right. And the alpha is going to go into the opacity. Right, so why does it, have I got to set this to a default or something? I guess I do, right? So what we'll do is we'll delete that, right? Right, okay. Whatever. Right, we'll do that, right? So you've got to set it to a default. Oh, you're not in Canada, so where are you if you're cold? North America. Well, North America is not really a good idea. What I meant was the north of North America, somewhere. I'm going to go for that. Oh, wait a minute, it could be anywhere. Right, so the reason I'm doing this is because this here, you see I've made all these materials, right? Well, I don't need to do that. All I need to do is make one material and pass in the texture, right? and that'll do all of our stuff. Okay? Hey Pele, bro uses Unreal Engine 4. Good spot. I'm proud of you. It's quite funny because the people come in and go, oh, you're using Unreal Engine 4. And you know that they're new to Unreal Engine because if they weren't, they wouldn't be using Unreal Engine 5. So it's kind of it's a bit of a giveaway as to how much experience they have on Unreal Engine when they come in and say, oh bro, you're using Unreal Engine 4. Yeah, of course I am. Right, so anyway. So we're making this texture, right? Material, right? And we're going to turn it into a dynamic instance material because basically we don't need these materials. I can just delete these materials, right? I can just go like that. Oh, my lighting's better than your lighting. Ho, ho, ho. Who cares? It's a bloody game. I don't make outdoor games, okay? Lumen, nanite, unimportant to me. Next question. Check my video out. You'll understand why I don't reuse Unreal Engine 5. And in fact, Epic themselves tell you don't use Unreal Engine 5. If you were to actually read their documentation, it basically says don't make production games with Unreal Engine 5 yet because it's not ready. So, yeah, I prefer to listen to them. Right, so we don't need all these materials, right? Basically what we're going to do is we're just going to work off our textures, okay? Don't really need that either. I could just do this as, well, that's a base color, so it doesn't really matter because the point was to basically make these I was going to remake these. I realised I did these in Substance Painter, right, and that looked okay. But I can basically do the same thing in a paint program, right? And then just bring them in as textures, and then I can just basically do it that way, and that works. So, yeah, we'll do it that way. But the thing is now that we're going to make it a dynamic material, right, all we need to do is change this structure, and this isn't going to be a... Oh yeah, your huge example of one game that is a heavily modified version of Unreal Engine 5, which by the way works off the code base of 4.27, right? But yeah, you're one example. That's great. One. Oh yeah. Yeah, because it uses Unreal Engine 5, the one that's available to the public, doesn't it? No. It's a heavily modified version of Unreal Engine. Yeah, he's mad because I'm not using the same one as him. Look, if you're using Unreal 5, right, and you're doing well with it, as I say in my video, enjoy. Have a great time. Okay? Nothing against it. Just as far as I'm concerned, it ain't ready. And Epic themselves say it ain't ready. So why you'd want to defend a company, I don't know. It's a company. It's a software product. It's a tool. It's like defending a hammer against a nail. It's like, what's the point? Right, so we've changed this structure, which means that we're going to have to change all of our materials, which isn't a material anymore. Right, so we may as well do it properly and change this to say texture. Okay. And once we've done that, we can add our textures, which I've completely forgotten where they are now, which is awesome. Oh, they're there. That's good. Right. I really should have made a help me one, eh? Have I got... Yeah, that's a texture. That's okay, so I can use that, right? As I said, these are just prototypes for doing some of these. I just want to see how they look when I stick them on a wall, right? And if I like them, I'm not going to like this font, by the way. I can tell you that. Right, it just so happens that Substance Painter has this good font that looks kind of like crappy writing, which is kind of the look you're going for with this. People who are in trouble don't tend to write in perfect, like, handwriting. Are you going to make a tutorial? Who's that and what about? Right, so back to the point here that we got. So we've made our material, right? And all we actually need to do now is when we select our texture, right, from when we select the texture from the data table, I'm getting all flummoxed because I didn't actually intend to do this today, but in fact I had no idea I was going to do this, but that's the way things work sometimes, that you just start on another complete thing. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to add a variable, and we're going to call it dyne material for a dynamic material, right? And it's going to be able to type dynamic material, believe it or not, once I find it. I hate when dynamic material instance. That's the very chappy, that one there. Right, so this is all going to screw up, but that's alright, because we're going to fix it, right? So what we're going to do, if you guys haven't seen this before, let me know, and I'll slow down a bit rather than just making the thing. What bugs have I experienced? I've experienced the one where it doesn't work at all. I've experienced the one where you right click and loops don't appear. I've experienced the one where the frame rate crashes to practically a slideshow, and then it will work, and then it won't, and then it'll work, and then it won't, I've experienced the one where it makes my computer run 10 degrees hotter. That's just a couple examples for you. If you want any more, just go into my video and you'll see why I don't use Unreal Engine 5. And nobody's disagreed with me, believe it or not, because everybody else has experienced the same things. Right? As I said, if you've never experienced any bugs, good for you. Right? You're having a wonderful time. And I do not wish any bad bugs appear in front on your computer ever. But the point is that everybody knows that it's a bug. It's a bug fest at the moment. Right? Well, you know what the problems are. Are you disagreeing with any of them? Oh, it isn't a bug. Right, okay. Okay, I'll not call it a bug. I'll call it a problem. No, I haven't tried 5.1. Why would I? I would rather people turn around and go and get the reports in saying 5.1's perfect, there's no bugs, before I try it, right? I'll let you do the bug testing, okay? I'll let you do the bug testing, then you can tell me, I'll not just listen to you, by the way, but I'll wait for the reports to come in from everybody saying that 5.1 has 0 bugs, and then when that comes out, I'll consider using it, okay? But up until then, I'm quite happy using 4.27, thank you very much. No, I won't try a new version because I'm not wasting my time bug testing, thank you very much. You can waste your time if you like, okay? It's your time, you waste it. However, if they'd like to pay me to bug test it, then that's a different story. So we're going to create a dynamic material instance. As I said, I don't see why people should be expected to bug test stuff. Right? Makes no sense. Right, so this is going to be... wait a minute. We're going to create a material instance. And this is going to be message. Right, we don't fill in any of this, right? But what we do is when this comes out, we set it. I'll tell you what, Epeli, if you pay me $100 a week, I'll test Unreal Engine 5. How's that? Have we got a deal? Otherwise, can you just let me use what I like using, which is 4.27, which is actually stable, right? Can you let me do that? And by the way, I think $100 is pretty cheap for doing some bug testing. Oh, I'm spreading basically dumb info about older versions now, am I? Is that right? How's that? Okay, we've got a blazing religious zealot for Unreal Engine 5 for some reason, even though I'm actually using Unreal Engine. But there you go. That's, you can't. Right, so we've set up our dynamic material, okay? So now when we get our texture, we can actually just set that as a parameter in our in here, right? And this is going to pass us back our texture, okay? And then what we're going to do, some people are just so precious about things. I mean, who cares what it is? Who cares if somebody uses Unreal Engine 4 or Unreal Engine 5? I mean, seriously. It's a bloody bit of software. Right, so now what we're doing is we're setting a parameter here, okay? So we get the dynamic material, okay? And we're setting a texture parameter value, right? And we're going to we are going to do this, okay? I don't have a strong opinion. If you actually listen to my video, and the title of it is Why I Don't Use Unreal Engine 5 Yet. I guess people can't read. So we set the texture, which is what we basically called it, right? We put that in there. Okay, we pop that up there. And then we set our dynamic texture, we get it, and we plug it in here. Okay. And we plug that back in there. And the funny thing is, when I made the video, right, it's basically because of the people coming in here and saying, oh my God, why are you not using Unreal Engine 5? And I was fed up answering them. So I just made the bloody video. And I was very aware that when I was making the video, it was going to be out of date at some point, right? Because at some point Unreal Engine 5 will be considered, you know, the de facto version of Unreal Engine to be using at this at that particular point in time, right? So I knew the video would go out of date at some point. The other thing about it is that if I was wanting to be using leaderboards, right, then I would actually be using Unreal Engine 4.25 because the plugin that I used to do the leaderboards in my previous game on Steam, the plugin for it hasn't been updated since 4.25. So unless I could update the plugin myself, I would have still be on Unreal Engine 4.25. Right, so there's various reasons why people aren't using 5, right? Whether it be performance in the editor or temperature or whatever. It might be just one plugin that somebody's game requires, right, that they can't do without. And it hasn't been updated in however long, and they don't know how to update it themselves, so they're stuck on that version of Unreal Engine. You know, that can happen. I mean, it happens in all sectors. There's banking systems and insurance systems that work on systems that are old as the hills. Right? And they just don't move off them because it would take God knows how much money to update them, and it's just not worth the bother when they work. You know? As I said, people are so precious with these things. It's like, what, you know, it's a tool. It's like, my God, I've not got the latest version of a freaking hammer. What am I doing with my life? Right, so anyway, back to this. So, by the way, right, for those that weren't watching and those who are newer to Unreal Engine, any version, I created a dynamic material instance. I set it to my dynamic material, right? My dynamic material has a parameter of a texture. So I return a texture from my data table, a random one. Then I set it in the material, and then I set my plane on the wall to that material. Okay? And that's it. And I'm hoping that that works. Well, I'm pretty sure it will. Dude. Yeah, my Barbie doesn't have nanite, you know, so it's a piece of shit. Right. So we're looking for something on the wall somewhere. Right, this is just gonna, there we go. There we go, see? So, our, there we go. There we go again. So as you see, rather than using a different texture for every single one of them, we've just or material, right? We've set it up that we've got one material that basically does them all, okay? Which is obviously cool, or better, or something. So there we go. Okay. Yeah, it's working well. The main thing I'm doing at the moment is I'm putting systems in place for when I actually start changing and getting finalising things, that I know everything's going to work as I expect. Right, for example, doing the footsteps and stuff. Now, because I did the animation blueprint, even though at the time I didn't have the animations, I knew I would just need to plug in the animations, and I'd already tested most of the code, so I knew it would just work. So I know that I'm putting the systems in place for when I get like final versions of things, that they will plug in seamlessly. So as you can see, and I can literally now put as many of them as I want. There is something weird happening there though. Although I think you'll notice, right? See that? What is that? That's appearing on the wall. I don't know. There's two of them, but this thing here is appearing on the wall, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's a shadow or what it is. Yeah, but it's not. I'm thinking it's the shadow from the light. That's what I think it is. Now, there is a monster here because I heard the door opening and closing. Right. As I said, this level is far too big. So this is going to have to be a later level, I believe. But I do think that those are shadows from the lights above. I'm going to try something, right? Yeah, I think those are definitely shadows. Even though that's... Right, I'm going to have to think about this. I'm going to go and grab a cigarette. If you're enjoying the stream, hit like and subscribe. I don't think that guy's going to be subscribing, by the way. You never know. I shall be getting a cigarette. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere. It's good to see the bots are back. you know what the funny thing is? Right, and this is my last comment on this, probably. But probably not, because somebody else will come in later and say, why are you using 4.27? But this game, I actually originally started doing it in Unreal Engine 5. And I actually got so fed up with all the little niggly bugs that I basically went, screw it, I'm going back to 4.27. Right? There's actually videos of me doing that, basically downgrading it from 5 down to 4.27. I think it took 3 days. 3 streams, I think, to do it. And the funny thing is, with my game on Steam, I did that in 4.27, or maybe it was 4.26, can't remember. And I actually downgraded that to 4.25 so that I could use a high score plugin. Oh, you missed all that, cats. Yeah, I was saying there that the funny thing about this is that this game, I originally did it in 5.0.2 or 3, and I actually downgraded it to 4.27 because I was getting fed up with all the bugs, etc. And the follow-on story to that is my game that's on Steam, I originally did it in 4.26 or possibly 4.27, and I downgraded that, which took me a week, because I wanted to use a plugin that wasn't available in 4.26 or 4.27. It was only available in 4.25, right? So, like, if you look, I don't know if I've certainly not deleted all the versions of everything that I've done in, you know, I've got 5.3 installed, right? And my tutorials, if you notice, are done in 5, right? So, like, I've got my tutorials and they're in 5.0. Okay? And the funny thing is, yeah, you see here I've got FTD in 4.26. Right? Well, this was the original game, right? But the actual one that gets uploaded to Steam is in 4.25, right? So there's the 4.25 version, which is obviously the one that shows the latest picture, right? And is it here? Now, when I downgraded this down to 4.27, yeah, here it's here, right? See, Dungeon Chaser in version 5. Right? So, it's not like I don't try, like, the new versions, right? He was trying to say, oh, you don't try it. Yeah, I do. Because this is the original Chronicles in 5. No, it took, downgrading it only took, in Chronicles it only took me 3 days, right? It tops 3 days. Now, if you were to do that and you've never done it before, it'd probably take you a little bit longer. But when I downgraded my Steam game, it took me a week. Right? Because you can't migrate it. You've got to literally manually copy everything across, right? And the problem with downgrading is that you can copy you can copy the blueprints, right? But number one, until you've got all the references and stuff like that to all your other blueprints, then nothing's going to work. Plus, it doesn't join up any of the exec pins, right? So if you copy from like version 5 down to version 4.27, it'll copy the blueprint, it'll copy the nodes, but it won't join any of them together, right? So that's why it takes so long. Okay, so if I copied, like, right, here's what I mean, right? This is what it would look like if I copied this blueprint across, right? It would basically come in looking something like this, right? And then there'd be some of the references wouldn't be right because I didn't have that variable. So this would like be like a nothing thing. So it would remove this, or it would be an error here or something, and all the rest of it. This wouldn't be filled in. This number wouldn't be filled in. This number wouldn't be filled in. And then none of the exec pins would be filled in. And it would basically be like that. Right? So if you're ever going to downgrade a project, that's what you can expect. Okay? So it ain't all rainbows and unicorns. Anyway, my hands are cold, so my mouse movements aren't great, plus I've got a sticky mouse. Yeah. As I said, it's like sometimes you need to do these things and it's just a bit of work, you know. You know, when you start, well, as I said, I did it on my Steam game, which was like a more complete game. And it's just, it's not difficult, it's just a lot of work. And it's a lot of tedious just copying and pasting stuff across and then joining up all the pins again and making sure all your variables are there and blah blah blah, right? Not a lot of fun, put it that way, but not difficult. So as you've seen for that, we've now got a working system for our messages on the wall, right? So as long as we can find a nice font to use, and then we can do some sound cues that actually relate to each of the messages, then we've got a nice little system there, okay? Right, so Cats, is there anything that you want to know about that you're not sure on how to do that I might be able to help with? Since we've got that system working, right, what else can I work on? What have we got on the to-do list? we've got this gateway decor, but I'm rubbish at doing the artistic-y things. Right, so for this, we'll now say, well, thank you very much, Darrell. That's very kind of you. Very kind words indeed. Right, so the wall decor messages, we can say system in place, right? We do need to add the wall decor messages. We need to find a decent font for somebody who's scared writing a scared message. The gateway decor, as I said, well, anything you want to know about the realm, any blueprint thing you've seen me do you want further explanation of or something, then just fire away. Fire away, especially at the moment, because I'm kind of stuck at the moment. I need to have a think about what I'm going to do next. I just don't get how to use them. Can you be a bit more specific on that? That's a kind of hard one to answer. Like, what's the most basic thing you want to do? And I'll do it. And I'll try and explain it as I'm doing it. Right, try and be quick about it, because I don't want to sit on the same screen for ages and ages here. Right. But now, so now we have our blueprint here, which is doing, setting up the material, our new material. Open doors like on Skyrim. Well, you see, here's the problem. I've never played Skyrim. No, that's not true. I think I played it once. So, I don't know how doors open in Skyrim. Okay. Is there some special way that doors open in Skyrim? That's different from anywhere else? Or is it just opening the door? Is that the problem? Do you want me to open a door? Because I can do a quick blueprint of a door opening for you. I can certainly do that. Right? So, okay. What we're going to do is we're going to get a door. Okay? So, okay. Okay. So here we've got a door, right? A door. Now, the first thing to make sure that this is going to work is to make sure the pivot point is in the correct place, right? Because your door is going to be hinged here, okay? Because that is the handle, okay? So it's going to open like that way and this way, right? So you need to make sure that the pivot point is there, okay? That's the first thing, right? But once we've clarified that that's in the right place, we know we're good to go. Now, there is a way around about that if we need to use it. If, like, say your pivot point was here, right? We could work our way around that by adding the scene component and then rotating around the scene component, okay? So, let's just muck around a bit here, just for the sake of the realm. Hopefully he'll get something out of this, right? So what we're going to do is, I've already got a couple of doors here, right, that are actually blueprints that open and close and shit like that, but we'll create it from scratch just for realm, because we're nice like that, right? So we'll create a blueprint class. I'll be an actor, right, and we'll call it BP underscore later cats. Nice to see you here. Hope to see you tonight if you're available. I'll be on at 8 p.m. Central again. So we'll call this Realms Door. Okay. Then we'll open this up. Okay. And now what we'll do is we'll get our door. And I believe it was door 1, wasn't it? Right? And we just drag this into the scene. Okay? Simple as that. Right? Now, we'll do this step by step, realm, so that you understand what's going on. Right? So, the easiest way to do this is, right, say you have absolutely no idea what you're going to do, right? Now, I would suspect at this point, you know you're going to rotate something, okay? But let's say you don't know what you're going to rotate. Well, if we set it to rotation by hitting the E button or hitting this button up here, we can look and see, okay, we're not going to rotate it there, right? We're not going to rotate it like that. Okay. Oh, that's right. It's this one here. Okay. So now if we make it at a strange angle, we can see that this is the value that's different, minus 49. Okay. So we know what we're actually going to rotate it on the Z. Okay. Now, I'm sorry, Realm, if this is... I'm not treating you stupid, right? I'm just taking it for the very basics of, you know. So, if you know all this, I'm not surprised, right? So, but we set it back to its normal, okay? Right. So, what we can do is, we can delete event tick and overlap for now, right? And what we can do is, say we wanted to rotate the door, okay? Well, what we can do is we can drag in the door, we can set world rotation, right? And then we know that we need to set this Z value, okay? So, little hint here, a good number's about 110. So we can set this to 110, right? And then we can do this, set this to when it begin play. Okay? Now, we can also test this in the viewport by hitting simulation. Okay, so there is our door at the moment. And then when we hit that, it opens. Okay? There we go. So that is the very simplest way of doing it, right? Just moving its Z rotation 110 degrees, okay? Now, if we wanted to take it a step further, okay, or we wanted to move it the other way, we could just put 110 rather than minus 110, okay? So we can have a look at that. We can check it in the viewport, hit simulation. Okay, there we go. Opens the other way. Okay, but most of the time you don't want to do that, right? Most of the time what you want to do is you want it to open rather than just move from closed to open in one fast jerky movement, right? So what we can do is we can add a timeline, right? And we can call this TL for timeline underscore, let's say, open door. Okay? Now, there's various ways to do this, but I'm going to show you probably, I might show you two ways, but I might just show you one, right? Now, what we need to do is open up this timeline, okay? Then, what we're going to do is we're going to add a float track, okay? And we shall call this alpha, and I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, now our door is going to take, let's say, 4 seconds to open. Okay, so what we do now is we add a key to here, and then we add another key. Okay, now these represent a start and an end. Okay, so what we do is the start, the time is going to be 0 because that is the start, right? And the value is going to be 0 because that's where we start, right? Then what we're going to do is at the end, we'll click on our other key and we'll take our 4 seconds. So we shall say 4. And our value at the end is going to be 1. Okay? Then we can hit our little buttons here and here to bring it so that we can see our linear track. Okay, so as you see, as the time goes up, the value goes up, right, over the 4 seconds. Okay, till it finally reaches 1, and that's basically the end. Okay, so how do we put this into play? Well, now we have this output alpha, and that is going to give us our value at the particular time on the timeline of where we are, okay? This node is basically going to run for 4 seconds and it's going to constantly update, okay? So when it updates, we're going to set the rotation, okay? Now, we know that we want 110 is basically the angle of our door, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to set this from the alpha, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to drag this down, right? And we're going to split this struct, okay? And this is when it is fully opened, okay? So what we do is we take our alpha and we multiply it by a float. And that float is going to be 110. Okay? Because that is the value we want when it ends. So once this hits 1, it'll be 1 times 110, which will be 110 in here. Okay? So when it's at 0, this will be 0 times 110, which will be 0, which will set this rotation to 0. Okay? So it starts at 0, ends at 110. Right, now I'll change this value a couple of times to let you see exactly what I mean by this and how it affects things. But that is basically it. Okay? If I go to the viewport and I go simulate, there you go. Right? Amazing. Right? Now, let's have a look at this, right? Now, say we wanted this to open all the way to here, right? Well, all we do is note this number, 160, that is our end position that we want, right? We go back to our event graph and we say 160 because that's the end position we want. Okay? So we go to viewport, simulation, and now it opens right up like that. Are you with me so far, Realm? Let me know in the chat if you're following along, if you're getting it so far, or if there's any questions, let me know. Now, say this is taking too long, okay? So this is, that's far too long, right? Okay. What we can do is, we just go into our timeline, we cut the time down to 2 seconds, then we change this to the time to 2 seconds. We save it. We go back to our event graph, or sorry, our viewport, and we simulate. And you notice it goes a lot faster now. Okay? There you go. Now, say you don't know how long it's going to take. Or say, the one downside of our timelines is we can't set. I'm just basically going over how to move the door. We're not going into interacting yet, right? Right? I'm just going over the very, very basics. There was a person asked how you open doors. So I'm starting with how you actually make the door open first, okay? Rather than how to interact with a door. That would be the next part, right? But basically, we're using this timeline. Now, the one downside of a timeline is you can't set the time, right? This is always 2 seconds. But there is a way of doing it, right? And that would be by setting the play rate. So if I get the timeline, right, what I can do is I can say play rate. Okay? Now, it's up to you how you do this. And it depends on your use case here, right? You might want all doors to open at the same speed, right? But this isn't really for doors, right? This is just an expansion of using a timeline, right? But what you can do is by doing certain calculations, you can make anything move along a timeline at the same speed, no matter how long it has to move for, right? So what I'm saying here is, if you're moving from A to B and it takes 4 seconds, and the distance between A and B is very, very short, right? It'll move very, very slowly. But if A and B are 50 miles apart and it still takes 4 seconds, it's going to move like a rocket. Okay? So what you can do is you can set the play rate. Okay? Now, if you do a bit of math, you can make things move at the same speed no matter the distance that they have to go. Right? By setting the play rate. So, if, for example, I set this to, let's say, 4, right? And then we do simulation. You'll notice it's fast. It's 4 times, it's playing 4 times as fast. Okay? So you'll notice there that it opened really quickly. Now, if I set that to 0.1, as I said, this doesn't necessarily relate to doors, right? But it will relate later when you work on other things with timelines that you need to get, like, if there's a distance that you need to travel and you need to travel at the same speed all the time, but you're using one timeline, then you will need to use this set play rate, okay? So this is like a bonus, right? Now look at that. It's moving really, really slow. Okay? So there we go. Okay? Now, the next thing we could do is we could basically have it opening and closing, okay? So from there we can say custom event, we can add a custom event and then we can call it open door. Then we can add another custom event and we can call it close door. Okay. And on our begin play, we can say open door. Right? And then here, we'll set this up here. And then there's a couple of ways we can do this, right? I don't want to go over every single case scenario here, how you want to do this, but I'm just going to show you a few ways to do this. Right, but what we can do here is we can say on finish, close door. And it looks like I've spelt it wrong. Yeah, I have. Okay. So we can basically say closed door. And what we'll do is we'll put a delay on it of, let's say, a second. Right, so on coming out, once it's finished, we wait for a second and then we close the door again, right? And then all we do with this is we're going to set that back to 1. And what we'll do is, now I know this isn't quite right, but it's just to get a general idea for Realm here, is we just basically say reverse from end. Okay, now I know for the guys in the chat that are watching that are a bit more experienced, this ain't going to work quite right yet, right? Because it's basically going to go in here and then say close the door again. But I'm just going to let Realm see what happens when we do this. Right, so if we say simulate, it opens, waits for a second, then closes. Okay? Simple as that. Okay. Oopsie doopsie, that's the wrong button. Right. So the next thing would be if we interacted with this door. Okay? So what we want to do maybe in the first instance is let's have a box collision, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to set up our box, we're going to move it to the center, right? Then we're going to move it up so that the player would bump into it, right? And then we basically move it on the Z, let's say 64. Now, under normal circumstances that would do, because basically, well, probably a bit wider. Right? Maybe having it centered and then like that, something like that, right? Because the player, it doesn't necessarily need to go to the ground, right? Because the player's going to overlap that anyway, okay? Then in your box, if you click on your box, now it depends what you want this box to collide with, right? But let's say you only want it to collide with the player, then just say overlap only pawn. Okay? Save that. Then go into your event graph, right? And then if you click on your box again and drag right down to the bottom, you've now got all of these events, right? And the event you want is begin overlap. Okay? And in actual fact, what we would do here, or in my case, I would probably do a tag on the actor, but we're not going to worry about that. Let's say we don't check it at all, right? all we actually need to do is say open door. Okay. Right. Now, obviously, that's the very, very simplest of code. I'm not checking what's colliding with it, what actor it is. I'm not checking if it's the player. You can do all that, right? But I'm just doing this in the very, very most simplest of forms, okay? So, the easiest way for me to show you this in action, right, is for me to go to the maps, go to the gateway, and then bring this into the game. Okay, so what I'll do, oops, right, what I'll do is I'll do this, I'll go to my assets, I'll go to my blueprints. Did I create it in here? Yeah, here it's here, Realms door. I'll drag it into the game. Okay, so there's my door. Right. I can't quite see what end it is. Doesn't really matter, right? What I'll do is I'll put it here, right? We'll put it there. That'll do. Right, all good. Now, if I press play, right, we didn't want that to happen, but that's easily fixed. And that's because on begin play, we're still opening the door, right? We don't actually want that to happen now. We only want it to open when we actually overlap the door. Okay? The collision, that is. Okay? So, if I press play now, you'll notice the door does nothing. And there we go. It opens. Okay? So, as I said, this is at its very most basic way of doing it. There's something weird about it though. But yeah, hopefully that'll get you started, Realm. I mean, there are different ways of doing this. You could have it, I know what it's Barham's talking about. You could do it with line traces. I wouldn't use line traces, to be honest. I would just do it with a collision, and I wouldn't do it with direct commands. I would do it by interact with an interface, right? So that all doors use the same interface. And basically that would be that. Hiya Kiwi, welcome back. I'm just about to head actually. But we just did a little tutorial on an opening of a door, right? Interacting with a door. Okay. And basically getting a door to open. Okay. So hopefully that's helped you out, the Realm. or at least it gets you started on where to begin with opening doors and stuff like that. Right? As I said, in my doors it's slightly different. Basically, well, it does this, right? But it uses an interface. And I don't know if that's the one, I think that's the one I use, is it? Yeah, they both use the same thing. Right, but they both use an interface. Right? So that's the way I do it at Sparham. I use interfaces to interact with a door. So basically, if you're interacting with a door, it's an interact object, and I just send the max angle, which is, this is your 110, the realm, where I would set the max angle of what this number is going to go to, which in this case is 110. If you wanted to open up further, I could just make this a bigger number. If I wanted it to be less, I would just make it a lesser number. But yeah, so you'll notice here that I've actually killed the overlaps on this, because it's actually does it with a button. No, it doesn't. I use interfaces basically, which is a little bit advanced, so we're not going to talk about that because that will just confuse the crap out of everybody. Well, not everybody, but anybody that's really new to Unreal Engine. So, if you've enjoyed the content, you found that interesting, hopefully that helped you out. I'm going to call it a day. I shall be back at 8 PM Central, basically in 4 hours time. I'll think about something to do with the game for tonight. There's a couple of things I'm not happy about, which I might have a look at. But check out the description. You can join Discord. I'm usually in there. We'll answer questions if it's possible. And you can support the channel. You can check out Patreon. You can get your name in the credits for the game. You can get early builds. Or you can check out my previous game on Steam, which is a tower defense game called FTD2. And even if you don't want to buy it, you can add it to your wish list, and that will help out in the Steam algorithm as well. Every little bit helps. Thank you all for watching, and bye bye for now.